We're gonna wait for a couple of minutes. We're gonna wait for a couple of minutes to get the all clear from the video guy. Alan, we should roll.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Moderator, you have the green light.
Alan's going to. Can you all hear me? Can you all hear me? Good. Louder? How much louder do I need to be? Can you hear now? All right. Who's in charge of volume on this thing? Can you crank it a little bit? The mic? Okay, thank you. All right, we're going to get started. There are a couple of announcements before we go. There's comp plan surveys that I believe everybody got on their seats, and if you didn't, they have them out back. And as the comp plan gets developed, it would really behoove us all to get our opinions in there so that when it gets written, we've had a say in it. Looks like that. All right. The next bit is to ask for unanimous consent that we use the Maine moderator. Yeah? I do? Oh, that's right. We paused it yesterday. We'd like to call this back into order from yesterday. Claire actually corrects me all the time. It's good. Now I'd like to ask unanimous consent to use the Maine moderator's manual as the guide to the thing instead of Robert's Rules of Order. Is that okay with everybody? Yes, sir. All right. Then we can start. We did it we elected a moderator by ballot yesterday. I won unanimously. It was an incredible stampede and a hard campaign. Thank you all. And Article 2 is to elect 2 members of the Select Board for terms of 3 years, 2 members to the Mount Desert Elementary School Board for a term of 3 years, and one trustee to the Mount Desert Island Regional School District for a term of 3 years. And we did that, and these are the results. Rodney King got 82 votes and was elected. Wendy Littlefield got 91 votes and was elected to the Select Board. Can I do these all and then come down? For the school board, Gail Marshall got 86 votes and was elected, and Andrew Solomon got 74 votes and was elected. For school trustee, Dan Kane got 94 votes. There you go. And you all should come down and be sworn in by Claire. You need this one?
No, that was yours.
Okay.
Yes, I'm waiting for
She was
him.
about to push me.
Okay, before I swear everyone in, I just want to thank the candidates for volunteering their services for the community. It's very important that we have people willing to serve, so thank you. And I also want to thank the voters for coming out on such a beautiful day yesterday. Take some time out of your day to come and vote, and again, to show up again tonight. And again, it's very important so that we can conduct town business. And then finally, I want to thank the Neighborhood House for hosting the meeting tonight and for feeding us a delicious dinner. Thank you. I could have the two select board members come over here. Oops. Find the right one. Cheers. And what I'm going to have you do is read them out loud together, and then when you get to your name, each person say their own name, and then continue. Okay, so if you will raise your right hand and read the oath.
I, Wendy Littlefield, do swear I will support the Constitution of the United States and this state so long as I shall continue a citizen thereof. I, Wendy Littlefield, do swear that I will faithfully discharge to the best of my abilities the duties incumbent on me as a selectman for the town of Mount Desert for a 3-year term beginning May 6, 2025, according to the Constitution and the law of the state, so help me God.
Okay. And so I'll have you both. Okay, can I have the school board members come up? Okay, would you like to raise your right hand and take your oath?
I, Andrew Solomon, do swear I will support the Constitution of the United States and this state, so long as I shall continue a citizen thereof. I, Andrew Solomon, do swear that I will faithfully discharge to the best of my abilities the duties incumbent on me as a member of the Mount Desert Elementary School Board for a 3-year term beginning May 6, 2025, according to the Constitution and the law of the state, so help me God.
Dan, will you step forward? Okay, this is for the school district trustee. If you would raise your right hand and take your oath.
I, Daniel Kane, do swear I will support the Constitution of the United States and this state so long as I shall continue a citizen thereof. I, Daniel Kane, do swear that I will faithfully discharge to the best of my abilities the duties incumbent on me as a member of the Mount Desert Island Regional School District trustee for a 3-year term beginning May 6th, 2025, according to the Constitution and the law of the state, so help me God.
Okay.
Dead air. You're allowed to talk when I'm not here. That I was in there asking them to get more chairs because we, oddly enough, have more people than we expected. So we're going to start. We're going to read the articles. The warrant committee members are going to introduce and second the articles so that we can open them in the affirmative so we can open up and discuss them. All right? Any questions before we start? Good enough. Article 3, to see if non-voters shall be allowed when recognized to speak during the 2025 annual town meeting.
The warrant committee would like to recommend passage.
All right. Any discussion of that article? All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Good. Article 3 passes. Article 4. Shall an ordinance dated May 6, 2025 and entitled Town of Mount Desert Alewife Ordinance be enacted? The ordinance reads in its entirety, regulations for the taking of alewives and blueback herrings shall be as follows. For the year July 1, 2025 through June 30, 2026, there shall be no taking of alewives and blueback herring in the town of Mount Desert.
And the warrant committee would like to recommend passage as written.
Second that.
Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call it to a vote. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Article 4 passes. Article 5. Shall an ordinance dated May 6, 2025 and entitled Amendments to the Town of Mount Desert Harbor Ordinance be enacted? See Appendix A. I'd also like your consent not to have to read all the appendixes out.
Great.
Thank you. By you. Is that okay with everybody? All right. Go ahead.
The warrant committee would like to recommend passage of Article 5.
Second that.
Any discussion of Article 5? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Article 5 passes. Article 6, to see if the town will vote to repeal an ordinance adopted at the September 16, 1970 special town meeting entitled Mobile Home and Trailer Park Ordinance. You can see Appendix B, page 34.
And the warrant committee recommends passage.
Second that.
Any discussion of Article 6? All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Article 7. Shall an ordinance dated May 6, 2025 and entitled Amendments to the Land Use Zoning Ordinance regarding certificates of occupancy for structures permitted after March 3, 1998 be enacted as set forth below? And there it is below.
And the warrant committee recommends passage.
Second that.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Does anybody want me to read this stuff down below? All right, I'm going to take that as unanimous consent then. Article 8. Shall an ordinance dated May 6, 2025 and entitled Amendments to the Land Use Zoning Ordinance regarding manufactured home be enacted as set forth below?
And the warrant committee recommends passage.
Second that.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Article 8 passes. Article 9. Shall an ordinance dated May 6, 2025 and entitled Amendments to the Land Use Zoning Ordinance regarding residential use in the Shoreland Commercial District be enacted as set forth below?
The warrant committee recommends passage.
Second that.
Any discussions? Article 9 passes. Oh, we do have to vote. Let's vote. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? I knew what you were going to do anyways. Article 9 now passes. If anybody finds that I'm reading too fast, let me know, because I talk pretty fast. Article 10. Shall an ordinance dated May 6, 2025 and entitled Amendments to the Land Use Zoning Ordinance regarding solar energy systems be enacted as set forth below?
The warrant committee recommends passage.
Second that.
Any discussion? I think we should vote. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Article 10 passes. Article 11. To see if the inhabitants of the town of Mount Desert will vote to authorize the Select Board to accept conditional gifts, MRS 30-A 5654, unconditional gifts, MRS 30-A 5655, equipment proceeds from sales of fire equipment or funds on behalf of the municipal fire department. It is understood that any funds received will be placed in the fire equipment reserve fund.
And the warrant committee recommends passage.
Do you?
Second that.
All right. Any discussion about that? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? Article 11 passes. Article 12, to see if the inhabitants of the town of Mount Desert will vote to authorize the select board to accept and expend on behalf of the town additional state, federal, and other funds, including unconditional gifts of money received during the fiscal year 2025 through 2026 for town purposes, provided that such additional funds do not require expenditure of local funds not previously appropriated. Do I have a,
Yes, the warrant committee recommends passage as written.
Second that.
any discussion? Let's vote. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Article 12 passes. Article 13, regarding to leases, agreements, easements, deeds, sales, acceptance of private roads and sewers. Article 13, to see if the inhabitants of the town of Mount Desert will vote to authorize the select board to lease a portion of the so-called visitor center at the Northeast Harbor Marina to the ticket booth operators for a term of 1 year beginning July 1st, 2025, under such terms and conditions as the select board, in its sole discretion, deems to be in the best interests of the town.
And the warrant committee recommends passage.
Second that.
Any discussion on Article 13? All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Article 14, to see if the inhabitants of the town of Mount Desert will vote to authorize the select board to lease a portion of the so-called visitor center at the Northeast Harbor Marina to the Mount Desert Chamber of Commerce for a term of 1 year, beginning July 1st, 2025, under such terms and conditions as the select board, in its sole discretion, deems to be in the best interests of the town.
And the warrant committee recommends passage.
Second that.
Any discussion? All those in favor? All those opposed? Article 14 passes. Article 15, to see if the inhabitants of the town of Mount Desert will authorize the select board to negotiate and enter into an agreement with the Neighborhood House Club, Inc. for management and maintenance of the municipal swimming pool for a term of 1 year beginning July 1st, 2025, under such terms and conditions as the select board in its sole discretion deems to be in the best interests of the town.
And the warrant committee recommends passage.
Second that.
Any discussion? Hearing no discussion, let's vote. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Article 15 passes. Article 16, to see if the inhabitants of the town of Mount Desert will vote to grant an easement to Versant Power for the installation of a push brace support pole on a lot owned by the town of Mount Desert, Assessors Map 008, Lot 003, and conveyed to the town by the deed from J. Warren Brown and Burton J. Brown, dated August 18, 1926, and recorded in the Hancock County Register of Deeds in Book 606, page 459. Such easement included in Appendix E, page 47, and further to authorize the select boards or its designees to execute any and all contracts and documents and do any and all things necessary or convenient to accomplish such easement.
The warrant committee recommends passage as written.
Aren't you glad you don't have to read these anymore? Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Article 17, to see if the inhabitants of the town of Mount Desert will vote to grant a utility crossing right on Newt County Road in the village of Seal Harbor to Stone Seal LLC for the installations, maintenance, repair, and replacement of a sanitary sewer line utility service proposed to travel from map and lot 029013 owned by Stone Seal LLC across map and lot 2915-3 owned by Las Piedras LLC and across map and lot 29151 owned by Matheson Finley B. et al., trustees to map, and lot number 2914 owned by Seal Harbor Library and Reading Room, and further to authorize the select board or its designees to in coordination with town legal counsel to draft, finalize, and execute any and all documents and do any and all things necessary or convenient to accomplish the granting of such utility crossing right. The proposed utility services are depicted in Appendix F, attached hereto and made hereof.
The warrant committee recommends passage as written.
Second that.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Article 17 passes. Article 18, To see if the inhabitants of the town of Mount Desert will vote to grant an easement on the town way that is Cooksey Drive in the village of Seal Harbor and conveyed to the town at the annual town meeting on March 3rd, 1924, to Treetops of Seal Harbor LLC and Ringing Point LLC for the installation, maintenance, and replacement of underground water, sewer, and electrical lines, pipes, catch basins, wiring, and appurtenances, utility services, under Cooksey Drive. Said easement shall be appurtenant to all portions of the Treetops of Seal Harbor LLC properly located at 46 Cooksey Drive as described more particularly in a deed dated February 11, 2019 and recorded in Book 6937, page 75, currently depicted on the Municipal Fact 28 as Lot 5, and appurtenant to all portions of the Ringing Point LLC property located at 39 Cooksey Drive. This is a long one. Which is more particularly described in a deed dated January 29th, 2018, and recorded in Book 2873, page 437, currently depicted as Map 29, Lot 2-1, on the municipal town maps. And further to authorize the select boards or its designees in coordination with town legal counsel to finalize and execute any and all documents and do any and all things necessary or convenient to accomplish such easement. The location of the proposed utility service are depicted in Appendix G, page 50, attached here to and made part hereof.
The Board Committee recommends passage as written.
Second that.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Oh, discuss away. Can you, if you're going to, well, if you're loud enough, we'll let you, but if you're, what? What?
Identify the person too.
The town will answer you, but they have to know who you are. Thank you. Does anybody want to take that one on? Well, we're going to find out in a minute if somebody has an answer. Go ahead. Brian Henkel's going to answer your question.
So I'm not aware of any other times where we've asked for any kind of anything in return for any of the easements that are granted. We've got several rights and easements that are coming through on warrant articles tonight. So the town did not ask for anything in compensation for the easement. That's right.
Any other questions? Is that me or you? Let's vote. I know. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Nay. I have one nay and everyone else is an aye. I think the ayes have it. Article 18 passes. Article 19. To see if the inhabitants of the town of Mount Desert will vote to authorize the select board to grant and receive easements on behalf of the town for the installation, maintenance, or removal of utility services as defined in Maine Revised Statutes Title 33, number 4582B, but not included any such utility services being connected to public utilities within a town way, and further to authorize the select board or its designee to execute any and all documents and do any and all things necessary or convenient to accomplish the granting of such easement.
The Board Committee recommends passage as written.
Second that.
Any discussion of this one? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? One nay. I think the ayes have it. Article 19 passes. Article 20. To see if the inhabitants of the town of Mount Desert will vote to authorize the select board to grant utility crossing rights on behalf of the town for the installation, maintenance, or removal of utility services as defined in Maine's Revised Statutes Title 33, number 45-2B, but not including any such utility service being connected to public utilities within a town way, and further to authorize the select board or its designee to execute any and all documents and do any and all things necessary or convenient to accomplish the granting of such utility crossing rights.
The Board Committee recommends passage as written.
Second that.
Any discussion? All those in favor? All those opposed? Article 20 passes. Article 21. To see if the inhabitants of the town of Mount Desert will vote to accept the transfer of land from Island Housing Trust by good and sufficient quitclaim deed without covenants, comprised of a portion of lots owned by Island Housing Trust, Assessors Map 10, Lot 048-001-001 through Lot 048-001-010, in an amount sufficient to provide a 50-foot wide roadway to be used for the construction of extensions to Sydney's Way and Farnham's Way, and the extension of the wastewater collection system as described in the amendment to the Ripples Road subdivision approved by the Town of Mount Desert Planning Board on January 8, 2025, with any costs incurred by Island Housing Trust for the transfer, such as title search, survey, and deed preparation, to be paid for by the town, and further to authorize the Select Board or its designee to execute any and all contracts and documents and to do any and all things necessary or convenient to accomplish this transfer.
Warrant Committee recommends passage as written.
Second that.
Any discussion of the article? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Article 21 passes. Article 22. To see if the inhabitants of the town of Mount Desert will vote to grant an extension to April 30, 2026 of the deadline of April 30, 2025, which was imposed in Warrant Article 28, adopted at the May 7, 2024 annual town meeting, requiring the Denningbrook Estates Homeowners Association on or before said deadline to deliver their deed to the town, duly executed and in proper form for recording, conveying in simple fee without condition, exception, or reservation. The full title of the land underlying the roads being a strip of land 50 foot in width or greater as laid out in the said subdivision.
Warrant Committee recommends passage as written.
Second that.
Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Article 22 passes. Article 23. To see if the town of Mount Desert will vote to accept Echo Woods Road serving the Echo Woods Road Association, the association, as defined below and subject to the conditions set forth below. Section 1. Echo Woods Road, the road, is a private road located in the village of Hull Quarry, approximately 720 feet in length, starting at State Route 1 and 2 and terminating in a cul-de-sac. The association has offered voluntarily to transfer its interest in the road to the town without claim or damages. The town shall accept the road as a public road in conformance with the town's public road acceptance ordinance, the ordinance, as last amended at the May 8, 2018 annual town meeting, provided that all conditions of the ordinance have been met to the satisfaction of the Select Board as determined at a meeting of said Select Board on or before April 30th, 2027. Said conditions include, but are not limited to, the following. First, the association shall deliver its deed to the town duly executed and in proper form for recording, conveying, in simple fee, without condition, exception, or reservation, the full title of the land underlying the road, being a strip of land 50 feet in width or greater, as laid out in the said subdivision and as shown on the recorded plan of the subdivision. Notwithstanding the delivery of said deed, the deed shall not be deemed to have been accepted until and unless the Select Board has determined that all said conditions have been met as provided above. The cost of preparing, executing, and delivering said deed shall be paid by the association. Second, the association shall have provided to the town manager or designee on or before April 30th, 2027, evidence of good title to the road as set forth in item first above, allowing use of the road as a public road. Such evidence shall be in the form of a commitment for title insurance insuring the town of said condition of the title to the road and the underlying land issued by a title insurer satisfactory to the town manager and as a satisfactory premium. The cost of obtaining such commitment shall be paid by the association. In the event that it is determined that any fee interest in the road is held by one or more owners of a lot or lots in the subdivision, then such owner or owners shall be required to join the association's deed, and the evidence of good title to the road shall also include such fee title held by any such lot owner or owners. Third, the town manager or designee shall be able to obtain a letter from any attorney satisfactory to the town manager, certifying that said commitment for title insurance is sufficient to protect the town's interest. Section 2. The Select Board or its designees is authorized to execute and undertake all documents and actions necessary or convenient to facilitate the transfer of ownership of the road to become a public road as set forth in this article. Section 3. The acceptance of the road shall occur and be effective only when the Select Board has made the determination of satisfactory completion of all conditions as set forth above. Said determination may be made at any date on or before April 30th, 2027.
Committee recommends passage as written.
Second that.
Any discussion? Go ahead. If you guys can walk up to the mic, it would be easier for some of the people that don't hear as well as others.
We have a request for you to speak louder too.
Me? Well, that's what I thought the mic might help.
Just wondering if the town takes us over, if that means we're liable for the plowing and maintaining it. And in one of the conditions, it's an existing gravel road, does that have to be paved before we accept it? Echo Woods is paved now?
Paved, yeah, it's a paved road, and it meets all the conditions of our standards.
So what's the advantage of the town adding on more plowing and maintaining it and taking it over?
This is something that was put in place a few years ago, which my road was accepted. I think it was the first one that was accepted at that time, and it was from the, it was passed at town meeting for this ordinance to accept town roads. I think part of the reasoning behind it is that the people that are paying taxes on that road, which is in the condition that is acceptable to the town, are paying for the same equivalent level of plowing, sanding, maintenance, but they're not getting any of that benefit because it is a private road. So they're paying into all of that pool of money that goes towards that maintenance, but they're not getting that benefit.
Okay, thank you.
Could you hear that microphone well enough? Okay. If you have any questions, you can always ask me and I'll reread it and repeat it for you.
Make sure the person announces their name.
Then you should offer your name when you come up. Thank you. I forgot that part. Any other discussion of Article 23? I'd call it to a vote. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? I think the ayes won. All right, Article 23 passes. Article 24, fiscal policy. To see if it includes reserve accounts, transfers, and bonded projects. To see if the inhabitants of the town of Mount Desert will vote to amend the purpose of the issued general obligation bonds of the town in the principal amount of $900,000 and authorized in warrant Article 41 on May 2nd, 2023, to also include the installation of a backup generator and backup level control for the Babson Bridge pumping station, and further to authorize the Select Board or its designee to execute any and all contracts and documents and do any and all things necessary or convenient to accomplish the foregoing installation. Well, I was going to read the explanatory note. This one. The original bond authorized by the town on I'm just getting up to stride here. On May 2nd, 2023 was for the relocation of the existing sanitary sewer line on Babson Bridge to the new replacement bridge. The awarded bid for that bridge replacement work was less than originally anticipated in the approved warrant article. The existing Babson Creek pumping station currently does not have a backup generator and has only one system in place to operate the switches for the pumps. A backup generator would allow the wastewater staff to use their current portable backup generators more effectively. The backup level control will also add redundancy to the operation of the pumps of the station. With passage of this warrant article, the authorized funds can be used for the upgrades to the existing pumping station.
Warrant Committee recommends passage.
Second that.
Any discussion? We might as well vote. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Article 24 passes. Article 25. The reason I'm reading these explanatory notes is that you're really supposed to. Just so you know. To see if the inhabitants of the town of Mount Desert will vote to amend the purpose of the issued general obligation bonds of the town in the principal amount of $355,000 and authorized in warrant Article 29 on May 7, 2024, to also include the purchase and installation of solar photovoltaic systems located on the roof of the Soamesville Fire Station in the village of Soamesville and on the roof of the garage at Northeast Harbor Wastewater Treatment Plant in the village of Northeast Harbor, and further to authorize the select board or its designee to execute any and all contracts and documents and do any and all things necessary or convenient to accomplish the project. The note, the original bond authorized by the town on May 7, 2024 was for solar pre-development and the purchase of an existing solar photovoltaic system in the town garage at 307 Sergeant Drive. The pre-development work was in anticipation of installation of the 2 solar photovoltaic systems described in this warrant article and for another at the Otter Creek pumping station. The costs of that pre-development are less than originally anticipated, and the system at Otter Creek pumping station has been removed from consideration. Therefore, the remaining excess funds will be repurposed toward installations of the 2 remaining systems with passage of this warrant article.
The warrant committee recommends passage.
Second that.
Any discussion?
I have a question.
Go ahead. And who are you?
Peter Thompson.
Can you jump up to the mic?
I don't have a loud voice.
No.
Yeah, sorry. So what's the relationship between Article 25 and 26? Like, can we pass 25 and not pass 26?
You can pass 25 and not 26. 25 is it's changing the purpose of the previous warrant article that authorizes the $355,000 to ensure that the public understands what those are being used for. We didn't authorize purchase and installation in that previous article, so we want to do that. The 355, while there is extra money left, an additional $50,000 is needed to complete the project overall. So without that $50,000, we'd have to find a different way to fund that if we were to complete the project, or we would have to maybe take one of them off of the list. So the two do complement each other. So reauthorizing the 355 makes use of the excess money. The 50 is just a little bit more that's necessary to fully fund the project to its conclusion.
So if we didn't pass 26, could you would have to come back to the town to reallocate the money to get one photovoltaic system?
I'm not sure. We would have to figure out what we want to do.
Like,
at that
you sort
point.
of tied these two
We would maybe
things-
have one of them that we wouldn't be able to afford finishing.
I
And then
understand,
we'd
but
have to
you
figure out where
tie
that
these
might come from.
together. So
Pardon me?
they're sort of tied together,
They are.
okay? I'm against 26, but we'll get there.
You don't have to vote for 26.
I know, we're voting on 25.
We're
right?
waiting, we will. Yep. You all set? Okay. Any other discussion? All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? I think the ayes had it. Article 25 passes. Article 26. Shall the town of Mount Desert be authorized to issue general obligation bonds or notes of the town in a principal amount not to exceed $50,000 to provide additional funding for the acquisition and installation of solar voltaic systems located on the roof of the Soamesville Fire Station in the village of Soamesville and on the roof of the garage at Northeast Harbor Wastewater Treatment Plant in the village of Northeast Harbor, and further to authorize the select boards or designees to execute any and all contracts and documents and do any and all things necessary or convenient to issue the bond or note of the town which may be callable and to accomplish the foregoing project. And then there's the costs and everything I've written below. Do I have a motion?
Yes, the warrant committee recommends passage.
Second that.
Any discussion of Article 26? We want to tell us why?
Sure. Well, I'm Peter Thompson. I live in Pretty Marsh. I never understand the ROI of these solar projects. And I'm always concerned about the end of life of the solar projects because these have hazardous materials in them, even though like 20 years from now, it probably won't be my problem. In fact, most of us won't.
I was about to say.
And also, it's only $50,000, so why are we financing it instead of just paying for it? Those are my objections.
Okay.
Thank you.
You guys want to answer his objections, or?
So for these solar projects, we did work with Climate to Thrive and one of their analysts there to look at the return on investment for these. And I forget exactly how many years it was, but it was relatively short term. So it's 6 or 7, 8 years in that range for these projects. So they're basically paid off, and then the amount, I don't have the number in front of me for what it is, but the town then has significant savings in electrical costs over the life of those systems. As far as disposal at the end of the life of those systems, we have to look at that time and what we do there. But we'll do our best to ensure that we're disposing of whatever it is properly. The bonding itself is one of the avenues that we have available to us, and it's the one that I opted for as part of this project, or chose to put in front of the voters to do it this way. We could look at other potential funding sources, but I guess keep in mind that these bonds are all pooled together into a single bond issue, getting the best rates that we can. And so this is only a portion of whatever the total bonding amount is within these sets of warrant articles.
Good.
If you turn their mics up, you can't hear. I hear you, Chair, I can't hear anyone else.
Can you turn these guys up more? And Brian, you have to talk about it.
Okay.
So my name is Lily Pugh. I live in Seal Harbor. And this might be off topic, but related to solar, you passed an earlier amendment or land use article, I think it was number 6, that also speaks to what happens when there's an abandonment of a solar system. So if that is applying to private citizens, would that not be applied to the town as well? So didn't you just authorize a new kind of restriction on what happens to these systems that should be public and privately applied? Just curious.
What article are you talking about, Lily?
Kim is nodding her head wildly yes. Okay. So does that kind of answer some of your question, I think?
Which article?
Okay. Okay.
Not 6. It's not 6.
It's on page 44 in the appendix.
Article 10.
Okay. Just thought we'd get that one straight. Anybody else have any discussion? Now I've forgotten which article we're on. I know. Article 26 will be called to a vote. Oh, sorry.
Matt Hart, first-time caller, long-time listener. I'm sorry, we couldn't hear everything at the start. I think the first gentleman that spoke, but I just had a question about why we're bonding a $50,000 project and a $25,000 interest. I apologize if that was already asked.
It was.
Oh, okay.
Do you want to know the answer anyways?
Sure.
Hi, I'll stand behind the podium. So there are multiple ways that we can finance a project like these. Historically, we fund capital projects and capital improvement with bond funds. I guess simplistically, if we were to pay for this $50,000 this year, it would increase the tax rate for this year. So I guess it really is up to the town whether they want to increase the tax rate based on the $50,000 increase, or as what Brian was mentioning, the fact that we are already planning on we're taking out a bond to begin with. This would just be part of the issuance.
Okay, so taking some of the funds like out of our investment accounts that we're using to pay down the tax obligations of the, do we not have the option to just take another 50 from there and to just pay for this, or?
So are you talking about our reserves?
Yes.
Okay,
Yep.
okay. So the reserve portfolio is, 84% of it is earmarked for our capital improvement plans.
Okay.
So just our equipment expenditures
Okay.
that we plan for. And then there is the other, what, 16%? That's a bad sign that I can't do that math in my head. I use a calculator, so, okay, but so that section of the reserves, that is undesignated. However, we do use those for mitigating volatility in the market when it comes to our investment reserves. So if there's volatility, we don't lose the principal on our capital improvement equipment that they have. They all have claims on that reserve amount.
Okay, thank you very much for the answer. I was just, 50,000 is a small amount.
Sure.
You should have added a couple zeros to it, Brian, then I wouldn't have had any questions.
Sorry, that was loud.
Let that be a lesson for the future.
Right.
Any other discussion of Article 26? Let's vote. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Duly noted. I think the ayes win, though. Article 26 passes. Article 27. Shall the town of Mount Desert be authorized to issue genuine obligation bonds or notes of the town? Can you guys hear me? Okay. In the town in a principal amount not to exceed $470,000 to pay for construction of the extension of Sydney's and Farnham's Ways and the extension of the public sanitary collection system as part of Island Housing Trust development of the Ripples Hill subdivision, and further to authorize the select board or its designee to execute any and all contracts and documents and do any and all things necessary or convenient to issue the bond or note of the town, which may be callable, and to accomplish the project.
Warrant committee recommends passage. Second that.
Any discussion of Article 27? Hearing none, let's vote. Article 27, all those in favor? Aye. Any opposition? Article 27 passes. Article 28, shall the town of Mount Desert be authorized to issue general obligation notes or bonds or notes of the town in a principal amount not to exceed $525,000 to pay for the installation of backup generator systems at the Seal Harbor Library Pump Station, Seal Harbor Hill Pump Station, Babson Creek Pump Station, Sergeant Drives Pump Station, and the installation of ultraviolet disinfection upgrades to the Seal Harbor and Somersville wastewater treatment plants, and further to authorize the select board or its designees to execute any and all contracts and documents and to do any and all things necessary or convenient to issue the bonds or notes of the town which may be callable and to accomplish the project.
Warrant committee recommends passage. Second that.
Any discussion of Article 28? Come on up.
Can you tell me, is the Babson Creek pump station?
Nobody can hear it. You got to come on up to the mic and reintroduce yourself again. I'm sorry.
Where's the Babson Creek pump station? That's different than the Babson Bridge one that we just approved?
It's the same kind of a scenario as the other one where there's a little extra that's needed. So the $900,000 that was bonded the last time around, there's money left over. That previous article reauthorized the purpose of it so that we could include some of the work that is going to rehab that pump station. This has a little bit more money in it to finish that part of the project. So we need a little bit of extra money over the $900,000 to finish out the full upgrade on that Babson Brook pump station.
So we're just calling them two different ones, but it's actually the same one.
Well, one of them is to reauthorize the existing money that we already have because it didn't authorize us to spend it on upgrades to the pump station. It only authorized us to spend it on the relocation of the sewer line. So we're reauthorizing that money because we had extra.
But that's listed as Babson Bridge.
Yeah,
it's the same one.
It's the same one.
Yep, okay.
Any other discussion? All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Article 28 passes. Article 29, shall the town of Mount Desert be authorized to issue general obligation bonds or notes of the town in a principal amount not to exceed $600,000 to pay for professional, technical, and construction services for renovations of the two existing town-owned tennis and pickleball courts, with said renovations to provide 2 fully functional tennis and pickleball courts and a seasonal chilled ice rink, and further to authorize the selectmen or its designees to execute any and all contracts and documents and do any and all things necessary or convenient to issue the bonds or notes of the town which may be callable to accomplish the project.
Board committee recommends passage.
Any discussion? Go ahead. You can stand here, Alan. And talk good and loud.
Hi, my name's Alan Kimmerly, and I live in Soamesville. And I'm lucky enough to be retired, and I have embraced our town government with the hope of keeping our taxes as low as possible. I'd also like to thank the skating rink group, as they have raised over $500,000 so far for the skating rink. I would like to say that this bond for $600,000 will be almost $920,000 when paid, just shy of $1 million for 2 tennis courts at the marina. It's my understanding, and being on the Harbor Committee, that the courts will be removed, refrigerated lines will be laid down, and new courts installed. The Harbor Committee that also said that a 16 by 24 foot building will be needed to house all the equipment that's going to be required to keep the courts frozen through November and into April. The cost of running and maintaining this equipment has not been discussed at this time, nor has the noise that it may generate. Also mentioned was the need for a separate warming building and a year-round full-time employee. The Harbor Committee, which I am a member of, was also told that this past winter the skating rink was open for use for about 61 days, and they had 1,600 users for the rink. That works out to about 27 people a day, every day that it was open. And I don't make it down the Northeast Harbor too often, but I've never seen any crowds like that at the rink. The Select Board has the final say over what the Harbor Committee may or may not want. The Harbor Committee has been told everything would be paid for with private funds, and this is why I find this bond, which is almost $1 million when paid, a surprise and just too much money. I'm not against the skating rink if that's what our town wants. I am not for it being at the marina on the tennis courts. I am not for spending almost $1 million for 2 tennis courts. I would be for building a skating rink at the high school, having all the nearby towns sharing in the cost and giving the high school the option of a hockey team. Our wonderful town has a habit of spend, and it just keeps on going, and I know we need to put a stop somewhere, and this is where I've drawn my line. I just want to keep our property taxes at a reasonable rate. Thank you.
Any other discussion? Come on down.
Story Litchfield. I too have concerns about the chiller. It's my understanding that it's as loud or louder than a generator, and it'll be 24/7. I don't think many of us live in Northeast Harbor because of the peace and quiet, and to have a noise like that going 24/7, I think is going to be pretty oppressive. They had a lot of good skating days down there. I'm not against the skating, but I think that the noise and the expense of running the chillers has to be taken into account. So I would vote against that.
Any other discussion?
Jerry, if I could address the noise level.
Sure.
So the equivalent level of noise for the chillers is a hairdryer. So it's about like running a hairdryer while you're standing there. And then additionally, we're going to be putting, it's not a building that goes around it, but there is going to be fencing with sound control. So it'll reduce the volume even from that. So the volume is relatively low, and it doesn't run 24/7. It only runs when the temperature is high enough that the ground needs to be chilled in order to keep the ice cold. The ice will sort of retain that cold as well, so it's not running constantly for the time that we have the ice rink would be operating.
Any other questions or discussion? You can come back.
It just seems there's a lot of details that, like the fence around it, we haven't heard those details, and it just says install chillers. I mean, that's all the technical. The Harbor Committee, which I'm a member of, we were going to be shown the location for this chiller, which is a huge, I think, didn't you say it was 24 by 16? So where's that going to be? And, you know, for the people who have houses near there, I mean, I think, is it 80 dB or 90 dB?
I don't remember exactly what the decibel number was, just the equivalent, what a sort of noise level. The area that was going to be fenced off was staked out, and I thought the Harbor Committee was going to go and take a look at that location. So there was stakes set so that you could understand where that fenced area would be.
That was scheduled for our next meeting, which is in a week or so. So that hasn't happened. But maybe if this can be postponed until there are more specific details.
Any further discussion?
I'm Jamie Blaine, and I live in Northeast Harbor. And
Erica Mitchell, Northeast Harbor.
so just to be clear on one thing, this warrant is for the tennis court and not for the rink. The rink is being funded solely by private funds. And so the cost is, this is really a twofer. For the cost of redoing the tennis and the pickleball courts, the town gets which is an enhancement, I think, to the economic as well as the recreational development of the town. The town also gets a skating rink, which makes it a year-round facility that will not only be for recreation, but also a place that will hopefully bring people into town, as it has done already in the limited amount of time that it's been used. Those people will, we would like to think, keep using the shops in the town, keep things open, help Ben sell gas, do all kinds of different things. And the cost of the town is simply the cost of redoing the tennis and pickleball courts. The rink itself is paid for 100% by privately raised funds. Thanks.
Sure.
Hi, Al Kimmerly again. $1 million to do 2 tennis courts is an incredible amount of money. We could just resurface the courts for an awful lot less. They're being removed for the chill lines can be put in. It's just $1 million for 2 tennis courts. I don't know that we should do this at this time. I think it could be postponed.
Hi, my name's Mike Johnson. I live in Soamesville. And I don't have any comment on the economic aspect, but it is kind of a shame to watch what used to be an expansive village green has just been slowly atrophying with the farmer's market, the bigger parking lot, and if this compressor unit is going to take up yet more village green space. I mean, we're not going to have a village green any longer. I mean, the skating rink's wonderful. I love seeing the kids there, and I don't necessarily oppose it, but I just wanted to mention that's just shrinking, and there isn't going to be much left. So, thank you.
Any other discussion? Oh, we got a lineup. You go after her, David, and then you can go third, okay?
I go?
You're up.
Jesse Greenbaum. I'm just curious how the skating rink worked last year. We didn't need a freezing system, so is there reason to go forward with a bigger production?
So, Jerry.
You better
Okay. So the $600,000 that's being asked for here is for, it's essentially some of it is chasing the construction costs, which have increased from the original estimated amount to redo the tennis courts. The original project as envisioned at that time was a complete redo of those tennis courts. They were always going to be torn up and completely replaced because the condition of them is so bad and has been so bad for such a long time. There's about 1.5 foot drop from one side to the other. The existing, so they needed to be completely redone. They're cracked and they're in bad shape. That whole area is fill and it's, you know, settled significantly. So it was always a major renovation project. It wasn't just a resurfacing. Additionally, the ice rink that's down there now, while it doesn't have any chillers in it, it also has really fairly unpredictable timing for when things can happen down there. So you can't really do any programming of any meaning because you're kind of just subject to the weather. So this past winter was relatively good, so they had the 61 days. The winter prior, there were fewer days that were available for the skating, and they're just unpredictable. You're just whatever the weather is. This essentially fixes it such that towards the end of November, the chillers are turned on, the ice rink is set up, and then you have solid ice that's skatable for the entirety of the season. And then you turn the chillers off and you clear everything out at the end of it, and you have a full skating season that can have programming associated with it, whether it's through, you know, with the elementary school or some of the local homeschoolers or some of the other area schools. But, you know, it can be relied upon in a much better way by having the chillers in place.
Go ahead.
Thanks. I'm David McDonald from Soamesville. I'm not going to speak for or against the project, but I have sort of a process question. Is there a committee that has ownership of this project? Is it the planning board? Is it the harbor committee? Is it the economic development committee? It feels like we have pieces of this and different funding sources and different objectives. And was there a big picture approval by the town of this project, and whose jurisdiction is it in among these committees? It sounded like the harbor committee folks were speaking as individuals, but I'm just curious where the jurisdiction and support and comes from within the town's bodies. Thanks.
Rodney King, I'm not for or against it, but does it have to be decided right now? Can we get more information before we make a decision?
Can you use the microphone?
You got one down up there, yeah.
Rodney King, I'm not for or against, but I'm just wondering, do we need to make the decision right now? Can we wait and get more information before we make the decision?
You didn't get an answer to your question. Is there anybody that can answer who's in sort of?
I probably could. I'm Alan Kimberly again. You probably know me by now. I am on the harbor committee, and generally speaking, when things are down in the harbor, we advise whether we like it or not, but the select board has the bottom line on it. They can say yay or nay to what happens there. We just make recommendations to them.
Is that enough for you?
Did the harbor committee make a recommendation on this project?
Did you make a recommendation on this project as the harbor committee?
We have not.
Thank you.
So it sounds like it's a select board
It's been in discussion.
discussion, right?
I can say something.
Go ahead.
Do you want to speak first?
Yep, well, I'm trying to get the one question that's
Oh,
already
okay.
out there answered.
This bubbled up from the community. Erica was the was the person who started it. And I'll never forget the day she ran into me in the post office and she was so excited about getting a skating rink for this town. And she almost single-handedly, but she got some supporters, and they worked together to raise this money to do something for the kids and bring people into town. And I think it's terrific. And it's in an existing space, so it's not taking up more space down there. And they've raised all this money themselves and organized the programs and brought people here in the winter when the town is frankly dead. And I just think it's great. And it has been championed by the Economic Development Committee, which is a town committee. And the select board has supported the efforts. The Harbor Committee has had some complaints, but has not as a group opposed it, as far as I know. So I suggest we vote for it and support a community effort to do something for our town.
You good now? All right, now's your chance.
David Renault. I just question, I have nothing against the skating rink or the tennis courts. However, I've been a taxpayer here ever since the tennis courts were built, and they're built on ledge. Muck out of the harbor and ledge. And if they're going to go in the same place, it's a waste of time. Can someone tell me where these are going to be?
Same place, right?
They are going to be in the same place, but they're not going to be the same structure as what's there now, because what's there doesn't have any kind of support material underneath it, which is part of the reason why the project originally, whether the ice rink was part of it or not, was going to be a complete redo. So it is going to be engineered and designed such that it doesn't have the same issues as what it does now because it is muck. You're right.
It's ledge.
Well, there's a lot of fill that's sitting in there. There's
ledge and there is muck in there.
Right, and so this system is concrete and not asphalt, so it has a span that is going to be able to be stable in that area.
All right, this has nothing to do with this question, but I would like to know why we get a vote of the warrant committee, but we don't get a vote of the select board. Why we don't get a 5-0 or 4-1 or 3-2 vote for the select board. Can anybody answer that?
That's kind of a completely different question.
I understand that, but there's got no other place for it to be.
It's not really germane to what we're discussing.
Then where would it be?
During select board meetings, for several years, I'm going to step away from being moderator. For several years, the warrant committee did not issue their decisions in numbers. And we asked for several years in a row to get that done, because that's what we wanted to have shown. So far, the select board has never done that. And the way to get that done would be to go to select board meetings and promote it.
I would suggest it be done.
I'm back. You're up.
Howard Motanko, CEO Harbor, and I'm a member of the Harbor Committee. So I just wanted to clarify that the Harbor Committee has jurisdiction from the water's edge onward and not really on the land. However, because we have a lot of use of the land, we do, advise and make suggestions. But in this case, it was never really brought to us as an item of whether or not we approved it or disapproved it. So we just got information about it.
Thank you.
All right.
Come on down. We're going to be a few minutes, Gary.
I'm just going to grab it.
I'm Carrie Sands, and I'm involved with the Economic Development Committee and the Community Development Corporation, and I wanted to answer Jesse's question about use. Can you hear me?
They won't in the back.
Okay. Can you guys hear me in the back? Okay. So in the winter season from 2022 to 2023, we had 38 days that were skatable. 2023 to 2024, we had 26 days that were skatable. And as of January 2025, there were only 17 days that were skatable. Brian, it sounds like ended up being around 61 days. So part of the point of the chillers is to increase the use of the skating rink throughout the whole season. The Economic Development Committee is very much behind this project because we love the idea of creating a vibrant center of activity year-round. And the gentleman who did the math on visits per day, that math does line up with mine, but only on the actual usable days. And I can say that every time I've been down there, it's been so crowded that we could barely even get on the rink, and it's been super fun. Thanks.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, let's call Article 29 to a vote. We'll start with voices and we'll move on. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Nay. In my opinion, it's the ayes have it. If you would want to, we can do it by show of hands or something if you're allowed to object. Okay. Well, then, in my opinion, the ayes have it, and Article 29 passes. We are going to take a break for a minute because Gary Friedman's here, and he asked to do this. So I'm going to surrender the mic to him.
Yeah. Okay.
Good evening, everyone. It's my pleasure this evening to award the Spirit of America Award for the town of Mount Desert on behalf of the Select Board. In this year, it goes to Tom Wallace. Is Tom in the audience? He is. What does that even mean? All right. Hi, Tom. Congratulations. I want to thank you on behalf of the Select Board and the town for your years and years and years of commitment to volunteerism, particularly as it relates to public safety. When I started in the fire department, I was on it for a handful of years. Tom had already been on it for a decade, at least. Okay. I remember the old days where we had the individual village fire departments, and everyone had to wait for 45 minutes for Otter Creek to get there because we had an old engine. But Tom was always there and eventually became the chief at some point of one of the village departments. But Tom, this is for you. I wish you could be here in person, but you're not, so I'll hang on to it for the time being. And our next guest needs no introduction, Gary Friedman.
Good evening, everyone. I just got here straight from the State House where things are hot and heavy this week and will be for another 6 weeks. But it's my honor and privilege to stand before you today as we recognize a truly exceptional individual, someone whose actions, values, and dedication embody the very best of what it means to be an American. The Spirit of America Award is not lightly given. It's reserved for those who go beyond the expected, those who inspire others through their integrity, courage, and service. This year's recipient has done all that and more. Tom Wallace, as you heard, has been a dedicated firefighter and ambulance attendant with over 40 years of service to the people of the town of Mount Desert. Tom, you represent the enduring strength of the American spirit. So on behalf of the Maine State Legislature, and with immense gratitude and pride, I'm thrilled to present you with this official expression of sentiment from the 132nd Legislature and the people of the state of Maine. Congratulations, and thank you for being a shining example of what it truly means to serve and inspire. So I have this award, which this was voted on by the full legislature and signed by the President of the Senate and the Speaker of the House. So hopefully someone can get this to Tom. And then I have another one, and I'm not sure if this is expected or not, but it is, Jerry. It's for you. So I don't have a speech written out for you, but
That's all right.
I've known Jerry for probably 40 years.
At
And, and I think it goes without saying that you've given yourself to this community not only as moderator, but as a volunteer in many capacities, as a leader of nonprofit organizations, and as an outstanding citizen. So
Thank you.
again, it's my pleasure to present you with this sentiment expressing the official sentiment of the 132nd Legislature and the people of the state of Maine.
Where am I going to find room on my wall?
Really appreciate it.
I'm not going to make a long speech. I'm flattered. I did not expect it. I did get Citizen of the Year last year, and it took the legislature almost 300 days to write a note congratulating me. Nothing personal. All right, thank you, Gary. We're going to move on to Article 30 now. You guys ready? If anybody feels like we should take a 5-minute break or anything, let me know, but we're just barely cracking into this. So the town of Mount Desert be authorized to issue general obligation bonds or notes of the town in a principal amount not to exceed $6 million to pay for repairs, renovations, and upgrades to the Mount Desert Elementary School, to include a new maintenance shed, parking improvements, playground upgrades, building envelope repairs, window replacement, roof replacement, kitchen renovations, and entry security upgrades, and further to authorize the superintendent or designee to execute any and all contracts and documents, and to do any and all things necessary or convenient to issue the bonds or notes of the town which may be callable, and to accomplish the project.
The warrant committee would like to recommend passage. Second that.
Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? The ayes have it, I'm afraid. Apparently you had extra zeros. Article 30 passes. Article 31. To see if the inhabitants of the town of Mount Desert will vote to approve July 1 of each year as the date on which all taxes shall be due and payable, providing that all unpaid taxes on September 1 of each year shall be charged interest at an annual rate of 8% per year. Tax club measures are exempt within the terms and conditions of the town's tax club agreement.
The warrant committee would like to recommend passage. Second that.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Article 31 passes. Article 32. To see if the inhabitants of the town of Mount Desert will vote to authorize the tax collector to enter into a standard tax club agreement with taxpayers whereby, 1, the taxpayer agrees to pay specified monthly payments to the town based on the taxpayer's estimated and actual tax obligation for current year property taxes, real estate and or personal. The town agrees to waive interest on timely payments. The town authorizes the tax collector to accept payment of taxes prior to commitment of taxes. And 4, the agreement automatically terminates if two consecutive payments are missed, and the taxpayer thereupon becomes subject to the same due date and interest rate as other non-participating taxpayers. 5, only taxpayers who are paid in full on their property tax obligations may participate. And 6, interested taxpayers shall apply annually for participation by the date shown on the application date and application format to be determined by the tax collector.
The warrant committee would like to recommend passage. Second that.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposition? Article 32 passes. Article 33. to see if the town will vote to authorize the tax collector to accept prepayment of property taxes not yet committed, not to exceed the estimated amount to be committed in the subsequent year with no interest to be paid on same.
Warrant Committee would like to recommend passage. Second that.
Any discussion of Article 33? Hearing none, Article 33 passes. Oh, we do have to vote. I know which way we're going to vote. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? A little presumptuous of me, I'm sorry. Article 33 now passes. Article 34, to see if the inhabitants of the town of Mount Desert will vote to set the interest rate to be paid by the town for abated taxes that have been paid at the rate of 4% per year.
The Warrant Committee would like to recommend passage. Second that.
Any discussion? Shall we vote on it? All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Article 34 passes. Article 35, to see if the inhabitants of the town of Mount Desert will vote to authorize expenditures to pay any tax abatements granted by the Assessor, Board of Assessment Review, or Select Board, together with any interest due thereon from the town during the fiscal year beginning July 1, 2025, in an aggregate amount not to exceed the property tax commitment overlay.
The Warrant Committee would like to recommend passage. Second that.
Any discussion? All those in favor? All those opposed? Article 35 passes. Article 36, to see if the inhabitants of the town of Mount Desert will vote to authorize the Select Board to dispose by public bid of town-owned property other than real property with a value of $10,000 or less under such terms and conditions as it deems advisable.
And the Warrant Committee would like to recommend passage. Second that.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? Article 6 passes. Article 37, to see if the inhabitants of Mount Desert will vote to authorize the Select Board to sell at public auction or by advertised sealed bid and to convey titles obtained under tax deeds and other deeds of conveyance to the inhabitants of the Mount Desert, to the inhabitants of the town, any land or buildings, including trailers in lieu of payment of taxes, except that the Select Board has the power to authorize redemption. Municipal officers shall use the special sale process required by 36 MRS 943-C for qualifying homestead property if they choose to sell it to anyone other than the former owner.
Warrant Committee would like to recommend passage. Second that.
Any discussion of Article 37? All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Article 37 passes. Article 38, to see if the inhabitants of the town of Mount Desert will vote to authorize the Select Board to contract for services in amounts not to exceed appropriation for same under such terms and conditions as it deems advisable.
Warrant Committee would like to recommend passage. Second that.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Article 38 passes. This is municipal review. Article 39, to see if the inhabitants of the town of Mount Desert will vote to transfer $600,000 from the undesignated fund balance account number 100-38300 to reduce the 2025-2026 tax commitment.
The Warrant Committee would like to recommend passage. Second that.
Any discussion of Article 39? All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Article 39 passes. Article 40, to see if the inhabitants of the town of Mount Desert will vote to authorize the Select Board to transfer up to $200,000 from the Capital Gains Reserve Account number 400-24202 to reduce the 2025-2026 tax commitment. The exact amount, as limited by the aforementioned maximum value, shall be determined by the Select Board timely assessment of current and expected market conditions.
The Warrant Committee would like to recommend passage. Second that.
Any discussion of Article 40? All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Article 40 passes. Article 41, to see what sum the inhabitants of the town of Mount Desert will vote to raise and or appropriate as revenue through excise taxes, service fees, and miscellaneous sources for the 2025-2026 town budget. The Select Board recommends $1,905,140.
And the warrant committee would like to recommend $1,905,140, please.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Article 41 passes. Now we're on to appropriations. Article 42. To see if the inhabitants of the town of Mount Desert will vote to ratify the overdraft that occurred in public safety/fire department hydrants and emergency management for the year ending June 30th, 2024 in the amount of $115,256.57. $267,657,090.57 expended versus $2,541,834.0 budgeted. That's so the overdraft was $115. The overdraft was charged to the undesignated fund balance. Said overage was primarily attributable to overages in the Department 403 Fire Department, netting to $81,006-57.57, $2,348,340.57 expended versus $2,267,334 budgeted. Said department overage was primarily attributable to fire time overtime expenses. Actual expenditures on firefighter overtime of $273,839.01 exceeded budgeted expectations by $70,000. Of $70,000 by $203,839. And 1 cent. Are you going to make a motion?
The warrant committee would like to recommend passage. Second that.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Are you going to? Oh, I thought you were going to discuss. All those opposed? Article 42 passes. Article 43. To see if the inhabitants of the town of Mount Desert will vote to ratify the overdraft that occurred in general government for the year ending June 30th, 2024, in the amount of $11,618.11. $1,938,487.19 expended versus $1,926,869 and no cents budgeted. The overdraft was charged to the undesignated fund balance. The said overage was primarily attributable to overages in Department 204 Planning Board, netting to $54,937.57, $142,877.57 expended versus $87,940 budgeted. Said department overage was primarily attributable to legal fees regarding various land use matters. Actual expenditures on legal services of $96,432.95 exceeded budget expectations by $20,000 by $76,432.95.
Warrant committee would like to recommend passage. Second that.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Article 43 passes. Article 44. To see if the inhabitants of the town of Mount Desert will vote to ratify the overdraft that occurred in recreation, public pool, utilities, and maintenance for the year ending June 30th, 2024, in the amount of $1,567.87. $7,467.87 expended versus $5,900 budgeted. The overdraft was charged to the undesignated fund balance. Said department overage was primarily attributable to repair costs exceeding budgeted expectations. Actual repair costs of $5,646.26 exceeded budgeted expectations of $4,000 by $1,646.26.
The warrant committee would like to recommend passage. Second that.
Any discussion? All those in favor? All those opposed? Article 44 passes. Article 45. To see if the inhabitants of the town of Mount Desert will vote to ratify the overdraft that occurred in debt service for the year June 30th, 2024, in the amount of $883.84. $2,204,872.84 expended versus $2,203,989 budgeted. The overdraft was charged to the undesignated fund balance. Said overage was caused by actual interest on certain debt service payments exceeding budget expectations in Department 801 debt service.
The Warrant Committee would like to recommend passage. Second that.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Article 45 passes. Article 46. Would you like me to read each department's numbers off? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. No. I think the nays have it. Article 46. To see what sum the inhabitants of the town of Mount Desert will vote to raise and appropriate for Department 200 through 211, General Government. Governing bodies, Select Board, Municipal Management, Town Clerk, Registrar, Elections, Planning Board, Finance, Treasurer, Tax Collector, Assessment, Code Enforcement, Unallocated Funds, Human Resources, Technology, and Contracted Municipal and Community-Oriented Services for the 2025-2026 town budget. And the numbers for each department are below. The Select Board recommends a figure of $2,299,378. Any discussion?
Yes. So I'm in charge, I'm on the warrant committee, and I asked, when we looked at all the budgets for all the different departments, there were a lot of increases in people's salaries. But one of the people in our town that does so very much for all of us is Heidi Smallage. Heidi's the secretary for the planning board, and she's the secretary for the selectmen. So I would like to ask you all to increase the planning board's budget by $300. And I'd like you to increase the select board's budget by $300 so that Heidi can have a raise for those two things. And then a little self-serving, but being a member of the warrant committee, we don't get paid to be on the warrant committee. We spend every Tuesday night from January till the end of March, meeting and going over the warrant. At the end of the warrant season, we have a dinner. We were barely able to afford our dinner this year. So I'm asking you, the people of this town, to increase the warrant committee's budget by $100. And that's how this line item went up $700. Thank you.
Any other discussion? If you come to discuss it, you have to talk into the mic next time. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Article 46. So what's the number we're bidding? 2-3, right? $2,300,078 is what we're voting on. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Article 46 passes. Article 47, to see what sum the inhabitants of the town of Mount Desert will vote to raise and appropriate for Department 300 General Assistance Support for the 2025-2026 town budget. The warrant committee I'm going to say the selectmen. Selectmen recommend $5,000.
And the warrant committee would also like to recommend $5,000.
Any discussion? All those in favor? All those opposed? Article 47 passes. To Article 48. To see what sum the inhabitants of the town of Mount Desert will vote to raise and appropriate for Department 350 Rural Wastewater Support for the 2025-2026 season, for the 26 town budget. Select Board is recommending $237,287. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Article 48 passes. Article 49. To see what sum the inhabitants of the town of Mount Desert will vote to raise and appropriate for Department 406 streetlights for the 2025-2026 town budget. The Select Board is recommending $23,750.
And the Warrant Committee would also like to recommend $23,750.
Second that.
Any discussion?
Lily Pugh, Seal Harbor. Is this, the appropriation of the $23,000 and change, is that for night sky sensitive streetlights and LED streetlights, et cetera?
We've already, can I speak up?
Sure.
I'm sure you probably already decided
Phil.
all of that, but.
I'll speak up as the
Okay.
chair of the Sustainability Committee and the Warrant Committee. That money is, the streetlights have already been paid for by the town. This is only for the electricity, and they are all LED and dark sky compliant throughout the town.
Any other questions? Hearing none, let's bring 49 to the vote. All those in favor of Article 49? Aye. All those opposed? Article 49 passes. Article 50. To see what sum the inhabitants of the town of Mount Desert will vote to raise and appropriate for Department 401, 405, 407, and 408, Public Safety, Police, and Communications Dispatch for the 2025-2026 season. And the individual numbers are there, and the Select Board recommends $1,621,779.
And the Warrant Committee would also like to recommend $1,621,779.
Second that.
Any discussion? All those in favor of Article 50? Aye. All those opposed? Article 50 passes. Article 51. To see what sum the inhabitants of the town of Mount Desert will vote to raise and appropriate for Department 403, 404, and 409, Public Safety, Fire Department, Hydrants, and Emergency Management. The Select Board is recommending $3,001,797.00.
And the Warrant Committee would also like to recommend $3,001,797.
Second that.
Any discussion of Article 51? All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Article 51 passes. Article 52. To see what sum the inhabitants of the town of Mount Desert will vote to raise and appropriate for Department 501, 515, 520, and 525 Public Works, Road, Waste Management, Buildings and Grounds, Parks and Cemeteries, and 530 Environmental Sustainability for the 2025-2026 budget year. The Select Board recommends $3,409,411.
The Warrant Committee would also like to recommend $3,409,411.
Second that.
Any discussion? Article 52 passes. Oh, we got to vote. Sorry. I'm used to speeding along. Let's vote. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Article 52 does pass, now that we voted on it. Article 53. To see what sum the inhabitants of the town of Mount Desert will vote to raise and appropriate for Department 505 and 506, Sewers, Wastewater Treatment, for the 2025-2026 town budget. The Selectmen recommend $1,329,339.
Warrant Committee would also like to recommend $1,329,339.
Second that.
Any discussion of Article 53? All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Article 53 passes. Article 54. To see what sum the inhabitants of the town of Mount Desert will vote to raise and appropriate for Department 605, Recreation, Public Pool, Utilities, and Maintenance for the 2025 and 2026 town budget. The Select Board recommends $10,000.
And the Warrant Committee would also like to recommend $10,000.
Second that.
Any discussion of Article 54? All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Article 54 passes. Article 55. To see what sum the inhabitants of the town of Mount Desert will vote to raise and appropriate for Department 701, Economic Community Development for the 2025-2026 town budget, and the Select Board recommends $10,000.
And the Warrant Committee would also like to recommend $10,000.
Second that.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Article 55 passes. Article 56, to see what sum the inhabitants of the town of Mount Desert will vote to raise and appropriate for Department 801 debt service for the 2025-2026 town budget. And the select board recommends a figure of $2,169,391.
And the warrant committee would also like to recommend the same figure of $2,169,391.
Any discussion? Let's vote. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Article 56 passes. Article 57. To see what sum the inhabitants of the town of Mount Desert will vote to raise and appropriate for Department 851, Village Improvement Societies and Public Social Services Agency for the 2025-2026 town budget. Select Board is recommending a figure of $177,248.
And the warrant committee would also like to recommend $177,248.
Any discussion of Article 57?
Moderator, my name is Gail Marshall, and I move to amend this to reduce the amount by $5,000 to make it read $172,248, and thereby eliminate the funding that's provided under the Social Services Agencies line for the New England Fishermen's Stewardship Association. And if it receives a second, I'd appreciate the opportunity to explain my motion.
Is there any second? You have a second? You got a bunch of them.
Thank you. This line is for social service agencies. If you look at this on page 108, 109 of the expenditure budget, you've got things like Island Connections, American Red Cross, Eastern Area Agency on Aging, Mount Desert Nursing Association, Down East Horizons, Nursery School, and so forth. And then you've got a new entry, the New England Fishermen's Stewardship Association. Well, that sounds anodyne, but what that is it's not a social service agency. It is a lobbying group. It is a political action group. It has existed almost exclusively in order to fight the development of any offshore wind in the Gulf of Maine. It is extremely well funded. It has a budget of $800 and some thousand. It has 3 full-time employees. In 23, it paid them about $100,000 each. In 24, it paid them $140,000 each. In 25, it paid them $160,000 each or thereabouts, plus benefits and expenses. They show no evidence in their budget of providing any services to people in this community. My suggestion is that when an organization comes before you like this, which it should not be, and we should not be using taxpayer dollars for a political advocacy by one organization that's not the town or some town entity. If you don't agree with that, maybe you should think about all the organizations that might come before you next year and in subsequent years to ask for advocacy money for themselves. I'm not criticizing what they advocate for. I don't happen to agree with them, but I'm not criticizing that. But this is not the way in which the town should be spending money for something, not for anything like this. I don't criticize the warrant committee or the select board by making this motion. I know that when they deal, I've served on the warrant committee, I know that when they deal with these outside agency requests, they can have as many as 200 pages of documents to troll through in a night or two. Each organization has like 3 minutes to present their case. My questioning revealed to me that at no point during the discussion that was had at their meetings about this group was the fact that they advocate for anything like opposing offshore wind development. That seems to be their cause. I suggest to you that what they're buying, no, what they're getting for that $5,000 is a lot more than $5,000. It's getting the name of this town to buttress their argument. They tried to get $5,000 from the town of Harpswell. This very same point was made, and Harpswell turned them down. I urge you to be more like Harpswell.
Any further discussion on the amendment? We're talking about the amendment now. Okay.
I'm just here to speak on behalf of NEFSA. It's not a political action group. It's about helping fishermen and their families. And it's a small group, and it's made by fishermen. It's not made by anyone in politics. It's not made by people with political agendas or partisanship. Its sole allegiance is to the fishermen of New England. And it helps my family, and it's helped so many more. And so instead of like just donating to the Lobster Association or one other, it's everybody. It represents eelers, clammers, everyone that holds a license in this town, which is numerous. There's over 25 families directly with licenses that it supports. And it does it with a small group, like I said, 3 or 4 people. But they were all fishermen. They've taken their time, they've given up the time, and they're changed. What they want to see is help. And it's all on making good policy on science based on fishermen's input as well. It's not just against wind. Yeah, if wind's in a bad spot or it's going to affect, they want research done and policy made that reflects the concerns of the fishermen and their families. And I think some people think that, there's been a name thrown out there that one man supported this, and a lot of people don't like his policies. Well, that's not true. There's no money that's ever been taken to this group to support someone else's agenda other than the working fishing families of the state and all of New England. Thank you.
Thanks. I'm David McDonald from Solmesville. I want to speak in support of the amendment. I don't think this is solely about wind. This isn't about who funds it. To me, this is a process question. All of the organizations that were named that are local organizations are social service, public service organizations, VISs. This is an advocacy group. I'm not saying it's partisan. If you look at their website, it says, we fight for deregulation on ocean fisheries, period. Now that may be something that a lot of people in this room support. That's fine. Support it with a donation from your personal checkbook. Don't ask the town taxpayers to fund an advocacy organization. It says very clearly on the website, we advocate for fishermen and fisheries issues. They do that primarily at the federal level, not just about wind, about a lot of different issues. But if you look at the website, it is loaded with amicus briefs, statements about DOGE, most of them coming from a Washington, D.C. law firm. So again, I support the Natural Resources Council of Maine. I support Planned Parenthood of Northern New England. Those are advocacy groups. They're working on important issues at the regional, statewide, or national level. This group is just like that. Again, you can support their cause or not, but I don't think it's for the town to fund out of taxpayer dollars advocacy work at the federal level. I think it's not a good precedent. I think it's a slippery slope. And I support fishermen. I think all of us support fishermen. We do it in different ways. We buy local. We support bond issues that invest in working waterfront infrastructure. We support and subsidize current use enrollments for property tax reduced on working waterfronts. So bad on me for not weighing in at the warrant committee a couple of months ago. I was behind. I don't like to bring things up on the floor of town meeting, but I just think this doesn't pass the straight face test in terms of how taxpayer dollars should be used. This is very clearly an advocacy organization. Yes, you could say that helps fishermen and their families. It does indirectly, but so do a lot of other advocacy groups doing work on important issues. So let's keep this warrant article focused on community organizations that do work, that provide benefit to the citizens of the town of Mount Desert more effectively and more efficiently than the town itself could do. That's the case for the harbor houses, the nursing associations, and so on and so forth. So, thanks. I support the amendment.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll bring the amendment to a vote, which means you're amending the original article to have a final figure of $172,248. If you vote to approve the amendment, you're voting yes on the amendment, which is changing the thing. And you also should realize that it's not a mandate that the selectmen have to remove that $5,000 from that particular group. This is a group, this comes up every year. This is a group total, and the $5,000, we assume that the selectmen would listen to the town's version of it. But it's not a requirement. It's a reduction of this budget by $5,000. So, if there's no further discussion on the amendment to the article, which will now read, the selectman recommends $172,248, we'll move it to a vote. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? No. It sounds to me like the ayes have it. If there's any disagreement, we can do another way of voting, but it sounded clear. Article 57 is now amended to see what the sum of the inhabitants of the town of Mount Desert will vote to raise and appropriate for Department 851 Village Improvement Societies and Public Social Service Agencies for the 2025-2026 year town budget, and the recommendation now is $172,248. Now we go back to the original article, which is now changed, if anyone wants to discuss that. Hearing no further discussion, we call the original article to the vote. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Article 57 passes. Article 58. To see what sum the inhabitants of the town of Mount Desert will vote to raise and appropriate for the Department 991 Capital Improvement Plan transfers for the 2025-2026 town budget. The Select Board recommends $1,208,318 and no cents.
The Warrant Committee would also like to recommend $1,208,318, please. Second that.
Any discussion of Article 58? All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Article 58 passes. Article 59. To see if the inhabitants of the town of Mount Desert will vote to ratify the Select Board's approval of the Marina Proprietary Fund budget. The Select Board recommends ratification.
And the Warrant Committee makes no recommendation, as usual.
Any discussion? All those in favor at Article 59? Aye. All those opposed? Article 59 passes. Now we move on to elementary school appropriations. Articles 60 through 70 authorize expenditures in cost center categories. And then after that, we approve the raising of those funds. Article 60, to see what sum the school board will be authorized to expend for regular instruction for the fiscal year beginning July 1, 2025 and ending June 30, 2026. The 2024-2025 amount was $2,277,445, and the school board is recommending a figure of $2,489,946.
The Warrant Committee would like to recommend the same figure of $2,489,946.
Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we'll call Article 60 to the vote. All those in favor of Article 60? Aye. All those opposed? Article 60 passes. Article 61, to see what sum the school board will be authorized to expend for special education for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2025 and ending June 30th, 2026. The 2024-2025 amount was $781,366. The school board is recommending a figure of $974,401.
And the Warrant Committee would also like to recommend the same figure of $974,401, please.
Any discussion? All those in favor of Article 61? Aye. All those opposed? Article 61 passes. Article 62. To see what sum the school board will be authorized to expend for career and technical education for the fiscal year beginning July 1, 2025 and ending June 30th, 2026. The 2024-2025 amount was $0.
And the Warrant Committee of $0. We have no technical services.
You got to second it louder.
Second that.
Any discussion of Article 62? All those in favor? All those opposed? Article 63, to see what sum the school board will be authorized to expend for other instruction for the fiscal year beginning July 1, 2025 and ending June 30, 2026. The 2024-2025 amount was $109,785. The school board is recommending a figure of $125,628.
And the warrant committee would also like to recommend the same figure of $125,628.
Second that.
Any discussion of Article 63? All in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Article 63 passes. Article 64, to see what sum the school board will be authorized to expend for student and staff support for the fiscal year beginning July 1, 2025 and ending June 30, 2026. The school board is recommending a figure of $686,002.
And the warrant committee would also like to recommend the same figure of $686,002.
Second that.
Any discussion of Article 64? All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Article 64 passes. Article 65, to see what sum the school board will be authorized to expend for system administration for the fiscal year beginning July 1, 2025 and ending June 30, 2026. The 2024 amount was $120,349. The school board is recommending $142,182.
And the warrant committee would also like to recommend that same figure of $142,182.
Second that.
Any discussion of Article 65? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposition? Article 65 passes. Excuse me. Article 66, to see what sum the school board will be authorized to expend for school administration for the fiscal year beginning July 1, 2025 and ending June 30, 2026. The 2024-25 amount was $329,223. The school board is recommending $361,001.
The warrant committee would also like to recommend that same figure of $361,001.
Second that.
Any discussion of Article 66? All those in favor? Aye. Article 66 passes. Article 67, excuse me. Can you, I need some water. Somebody else can, you'll have to read the thing and you just second it. Article 67, to see what sum the school board will be authorized to expend for transportation and buses for the fiscal year beginning July 1, 2025 and ending June 30, 2026. The 2024 amount, 24-25 amount was $289,640. Thank you, Phil. The school board is recommending a figure of $286,618.
The warrant committee would also like to recommend the same figure of $286,618.
Any discussion of Article 67? All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Article 67 passes. Article 68, to see what sum the school board will be authorized to expend for facilities maintenance for the fiscal year beginning July 1, 2025 and ending June 30, 2026. The school board recommends a figure of $695,228.
And the warrant committee would also like to recommend that same figure of $695,228.
Second that.
Any discussion of Article 68? All those in favor? All those opposed? Article 68 passes. Article 69, to see what sum the school board will be authorized to expend for debt service and other commitments for the fiscal year beginning July 1, 2025 and ending June 30, 2026. The 2024-25 amount was $0. The school board recommends $0.
And the warrant committee also recommends $0.
Any discussion of Article 69? Article 70. Well, we should vote. Article 69. All those in favor? Aye. I was making an assumption, I'm afraid. All those opposed? Now Article 69 passes. Article 70, to see what sum the school board will be authorized to expend for all other expenditures for the fiscal year beginning July 1, 2025 and ending June 30, 2026. The 2024-25 amount was $80,000. School board recommends a figure of $82,000.
And the warrant committee would like to recommend the same figure of $82,000.
Any discussion? Shall we vote? All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Article 70 passes. Now we move on to hand counting and written ballots. And this is the part where we, pardon me? Yeah, you get up and move a little bit. So we're raising funds now that we just authorized them to spend. This is a hand count coming up, so all you have to do is raise your hand, but you can raise them up and down. And to see what sum the voters of the town of Mount Desert will appropriate for the total cost of funding public education from kindergarten to grade 12 as described in the Essential Programs and Services Funding Act, they make a recommendation of $2,368,983, and to see what sum the voters of the town of Mount Desert will raise as the town's contribution to the total cost of funding public education from kindergarten to grade 12, as described in the Essential Programs and Service Funding Act, in accordance with the Maine Revised Statutes, Title 20-A, Section 15688, for the period July 1, 2025, and ending June 30th, 26. The town of Mount Desert's contribution to the total cost of funding publication from kindergarten to grade 12, as described in the Essential Programs and Services Funding Act, is the amount of money determined by the state to be the minimum amount that the municipality must raise in order to receive the full amount of state dollars. The school board recommends $2,030,148.
And the warrant committee also recommends that same figure of $2,030,148.
Second that.
Any discussion? All right, this is where you get some exercise. All those in favor, you get to raise your hands. Because I pause between speaking. I didn't get a card.
Did you check in?
No. No, I was late. I left my moderator's manual at home and I had to drive back and get it. Who's going to do that? You don't? After the next hand count, before. We'll do two hand counts and then we have a written ballot. They won't leave. Oh, we can do it after the next one. I don't really care. Who's going to do it? Who's making it up? I missed that part. Thank you. Oh, yes. All those opposed? I didn't assume. Any opposition to this? I was prescient. All right. The total is 89 in favor and 0 opposed. I am incredibly impressed that so many people are still here at this time of night. So thank you all for being here.
Thank you.
And don't sneak off. Why don't you go ahead? You're going to make some announcements, right?
Yeah, I'd like to make a couple of quick announcements.
Don't scare them out of the building.
I'm not going to scare anybody. The Sustainability Committee is having an event on June 14th at the library. We're having a sport equipment swap. And then also on the 31st of May, this is a first-time event, we're going to have a shred on site. at the highway garage from 9 to 1. Everyone, bring all your documents. It's all going to be shredded securely. If you have old checks, all of us must have boxes and boxes of things. This is for town residents. Please come 9 to 1. Thank you. Also, I want to welcome Evan, our new person to the town clerk's office. I want to thank everyone on the school board. I also would like to thank the superintendent, Mike Sabori. I'd also like to thank Nancy Thurlow, the business manager, and our principal, Heather Dorr. Thank you so much. And Jerry, you did a great job. Thank you.
Yeah, it's not over yet. Thank you, Phil. He does a large percentage of the work on the warrant committee and other committees as well. But Article 72, to see what sum the voters of the town of Mount Desert will raise, this is again to hand count, will raise and appropriate for the annual payments on debt service previously approved by the legislative body for non-state funded school construction problems, non-state funded portions of school construction projects, and minor capital projects in addition to the funds appropriated as the local share of the town of Mount Desert's contribution to the total cost of funding public education from kindergarten through grade 12 for the period July 1 through June 30th, 2026. School board recommends a figure of nothing.
And the warrant committee would also like to join the school board and recommend nothing for debt service.
And I'll second that.
Any discussion? All right, all those in favor of Article 72, raise your hands. We'll see how many people snuck out between numbers. Coming.
Yes.
Save it for next. I think they got you. You ready? All those opposed? There we go. So,
I didn't have a card, so I didn't vote.
oh, she would have voted. I took Claire's card. Article 72 has 88 yeses and no noes. So Article 72 passes. We could rip it in half. All right, now we're going to have written ballots, and this is when you get to really get up and stretch your legs. I wasn't here for the raffle handing out, so should we do them?
You can do them. I would suggest you do them while we.
Why don't we do it while they count? Yeah. All right, Article 73. No, you come up and you stand in line. For those of you that have never done this before, there's tags up top, and you rip the thing in half, and one says yes and one says no, and you put the one you want in the box.
And put the no in the trash can.
I don't care what you do with the no. Just don't put two of them in the box. You can keep it for a souvenir. Article 73. To see what sum the voters of the town of Mount Desert will raise and appropriate in additional local funds for school purposes. Recommendation of $3,223,251 for the period July 1, 2025 and ending June 30, 2026, which exceeds the state's essential programs and services allocation model by recommendation number of 3223251 as required to fund the budget recommended by the school board. The school board recommends $3,223,251 for additional local funds and gives the following reasons for exceeding the state's essential programs and services funding model by $3,223,251. The state budget funding model underestimates the actual cost to fully fund the 2026 budget. The warrant committee recommends $3,223,251 for additional local funds and give the following reasons for exceeding the state's essential programs and services funding model by $3,223,251. I read it for you, I'm sorry, but the state funding model underestimates the actual cost to fully fund the 2025-2026 budget.
I'd like to second that, please.
You could, yeah. You should actually move it and you should second it, just to straighten out the mistake.
So the warrant
As
committee
written.
would also like to
As
move it
written.
As written, and then they'd also second that.
All right. I'm inherently bossy, I guess. All right, we're going to vote now. Then you're going to come write it down. Just line up and chat. Do you want to discuss it? Is there any discussion? No. So.
We're going against the tide. Sweet weather.
Yeah, and we always kind of volunteer to leave whenever they put it out, so. Okay, we're good with whatever. Post discussion.
Always good. That's not necessarily my fault.
No, it's not. It's a good thing. And I didn't. Oh, I thought you were. No, we don't like them too interesting. That's what it is. My copies of the dream. And no one raised, I mean, that would have been, we used to ask some questions about all the overrides, the over budget stuff. Not a few. Nope.
fun?
Then most everybody stayed.
Almost, maybe. Then it will be complaining about that.
Did you use the pond?
Hey, how are you?
Yeah, that was discretionary, out of the select discretionary fund. It wasn't voted on. And the whole point is, it's not about what they're doing, it's we're paying money to a PAC. Yeah. Nothing paying. It's probably legal. Could have gone a lot
I didn't vote again.
You voted yesterday.
I did.
That's all of it. All right, we can read the results of Article 73. Article 73 passed with a yes vote of 78 and a no vote of 4. So then, we'll move back on, we'll reconvene. There's a few more empty seats out there.
Hey, did you want to do a raffle, or do you want to wait till the end?
Let's do a raffle. How many raffles do we have?
I don't know. Let's. Where's Brian? Huh? I don't know where she is.
Well, we'll do a hand vote while we wait and figure that out. So after this is done. Right? I know. I'm just reading myself up to see what. Article 74 is a hand count, and I'm going to read it to you. To see what sum the voters of the town of Mount Desert will authorize the school board to expend for the fiscal year beginning July 1, 2028 and ending July 30, 2026. From the town contribution to the total cost of public funding education from kindergarten to grade 12 as described in the essential programs and services funding and non-state funded school construction, additional local funds for school purposes under the Maine Revised Statutes Title 20-A, Section 15690, unexpended balances, tuition receipts, state subsidy, and other receipts for the support of schools. The school board recommends a figure of $5,843,006.
The warrant committee would also like to recommend that same figure of $5,843,006.
Any discussion? All those in favor? All those opposed? Oh, you got to count, sorry. It's 72. People sneak out.
How do you vote? Yes or no?
Yes. Because he took my card away. I don't need it anymore now. While they tally things up, there's really a bit of business we all should do is that this is Derlin's last town meeting as town manager. I'm sure he'll be sitting out with you next year. Are you still here? So, a really serious round of applause for... Yes, ma'am. What are we doing now?
Nose.
Nose. Yeah, I just thought we'd do Derlin was more important than the nose.
It is.
All those opposed? See?
Okay. Has to be official.
I know. What's the number? Oh, it's going down fast. Article 74 passed 77 to 0.
And thank you for keeping a quorum.
I know, so that's because I'm absolutely fascinating. Okay, Article 74 passed. Article we do have, apparently, this thing. Are we? No, we might as well do the last bet. We don't want them? All right, Article 75. In addition to the amount in Articles 60 through 74, shall the school board be authorized to expend such other sums as may be received from state or federal grants or programs or other sources during the fiscal year 2025 to 26 for school purposes, provided that such grants, programs, or other sources do not require the expenditure of other funds not previously appropriated. Current year totals are $220,469. The school board recommends passage of Article 75.
And the warrant committee also recommends passage.
All those, this is the last time you get to vote tonight. All those in favor? Aye. Did anybody want to discuss it? Do you have something to say, Lauren? I forgot to let you all democratically discuss it. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Article 75 passes. What are we doing with this?
Do you want to do a raffle, I guess?
What is it? I don't. There's a raffle. So wait, we're not going to adjourn yet. It'll be quick. Yeah? I did. I'm going to make another pitch for you to fill out the comprehensive plan, and I won't entertain a movement to adjourn until everyone has filled out their forms. It would really be appreciated, because the more that they get in, the better the comprehensive plan can include everybody's ideas instead of just a couple. About 8:45. Yeah. There's a form. You can do it right online, and we will look for it.
Okay, I don't know what's being raffled. Do you?
There's 2 kitchen buckets for putting compostable material through.
Compost buckets?
2 compost buckets and 2 composters.
So there's 4 things. 2 compost buckets for your kitchen and 2 composters for outside. And the first one, this is for one of the kitchen ones. Or you actually can pick. You can pick 768-441. There you go. What would you like? Are they physically here?
Yes, they're
Which one do you want? One of the outside ones.
Okay.
We trust you. But we're going to take your ticket just in case. Trust but verify. The second one of the big outside composters is gone. The second ticket who's winning here is 768-470. Well, that was pretty exciting, but we were pretty close, weren't you? We're going to should we just keep taking until somebody's here? This is what you get. Oh, or. It is indeed. Which one would you like, an outside or indoor? Go down there and look, and we'll take our time. We'll stall while she makes up her mind. When we do auctions, we do a thing called choice and privilege, where you get to pick this, and it drives everybody nuts. They'll say, I want one of that. No, I want 2. And then, no, I don't want that one. Did you decide? You want to go look, Caroline and David? The big one. All right, there's 2 little ones left. 768-433. And here's a model. So you win that one. Sorry you couldn't get the big one, but one more just like it. 768-422. You won? There you go. Not yet. Claire, do we have to do anything else? I would entertain a motion to adjourn. All right, it's not debatable. Everybody go home. We're officially adjourned at 8:30.